Ex-teachers, professors of Reddit, what was your duck this moment? Parents yelling at me for accusing their little prince of acting out and getting zero support from administration. The principal's niece made a B in my freshman geography class and she wanted me to bump it to an A because the child could not get into Texas A&M with a B in a freshman class on her record. This school also pressured teachers to fail no students. I failed a college student who never came to class and missed both the midterm and final exams. The influential parents complained to the school. The administration later went into the digital records and changed the fail to a passing grade without my knowledge. I found it out later, third hand. Ergo, I refused to sign a second-year contract they offered to me. Kid poured gasoline under the door of my room after hours and lit it, burning most of the room. The facility guys worked all weekend to clean it up and paint it, hauling in new desks to replace those burned. Not long after that, I found out I could make more money with less hassle by waiting tables at the beach. Plus the beach has women in bikinis. Full stop. I was gone a week later. I had a student that copied off another kid during a test. I gave him a 0%. The parents came in to complain to administration that, since I hadn't explicitly said during the first day orientation that cheating wasn't allowed, it was an unfair punishment. Administration forced me to allow him an opportunity to retake the test. He never retook the test, and the grade of 0 stood. Still, I was so disillusioned by the entire experience that I started looking the next day at college programs that I could use to transition away from public education. End of year assessing students to see who'd progress through to the second year. While assessing the work, the department head came in and said we had to fail X amount due to facilities and resources for the next year. He then returned an hour later and said that due to the budget we actually needed to pass a higher number than originally thought. I completely ignored what he said and carried on marking on merit, but it was the proverbial straw. Edit. This was a UK university a few years ago. The system has been really messed up in recent years. Whoa, that is the most ducked up thing I've heard. I know that goes on, but still. I know this isn't exactly what you were talking about, but when I was in high school, my graduating class was going to have the lowest grad rate in our state in the 50 years preceding. Well, the seniors got out a week early from the rest of the school because at that point you know your grades and if you're graduating or not and won't come anyway. So we get out and they discover our rate is so low. So they told the teachers to give students a chance to make up work if they could get them to pass. My best friend had failed English by about 10% and our English teacher allowed him to make that 10% up. So technically he wasn't supposed to graduate. Our graduation rate wasn't the lowest in 50 years that year. I was a high school teacher with 7 years experience in my district and a master's degree. I was making $49K. This was 2013. I was talking to a friend who was in from out of town. This friend had barely made it through his bachelor's degree, even with a lot of help from him and other friends. Over dinner he was complaining about not getting a good enough raise, so he was only making $143K at his software consulting job. He didn't do the technical stuff. More customer relations. I left teaching to make more money. But it has taken a while. And I really miss working with the kids. Wish I had stayed in teaching. Edit. To be clear, I don't begrudge my friend a penny. Good for people who do well. Edit. A letter. My mom retired as a special education teacher after a student bit her hard enough to draw blood. She had to get a ton of tests for everything from hepatitis to freaking rabies. She was fine, thankfully, but that was when she decided that she'd had enough. She went on to sub for non-special ed kids and eventually to do administrative work at a charity for ASD individuals. Mine wasn't so much a bad duck this moment. I used to teach developmentally delayed kids and it was awesome. The one moment that sticks out the most was when we were doing a lesson on dinosaurs. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, the kids were having a blast pretending to be dinosaurs, so we just said duck the lesson and had dinosaur day. Pretty much the whole day was spent acting like dinosaurs and doing dinosaur-y things. Going through my duck this moment right now. Been in special education since 2007. District I work in desperately wants teachers to start new classrooms due to overcrowding, yet they don't want to hire the right people. They'd rather hire fellow locals from high school in the area who the admins know versus hiring qualified people from the outside. Our special education admin has zero spec ed experience and his replacement also has no spec ed experience. Not fun at all. A female student I had disciplinary issues with accused me of hitting on her and making obscene gestures towards her. I'm an openly gay man and most of the staff knew this, yet the district still put me on suspension while they investigated. They were able to prove she was lying, but the district decided that the best course of action was to transfer me to another school instead of, punishing the student. I quit at the end of the school year and got a job in banking. So I was a TA for a college course, Introduction to Information Assurance. One of the labs for the class involved performing a SQL injection. If you don't know what that means, just know that you have to build your input string carefully. The attack required a very specific input. Well, this one student was getting frustrated and asked for some help. After looking at his input string, I realized he had it just right. Except he was missing a terminator on part of the input. Semicolons. Am I right? I pointed out the simple mistake and he didn't take it well. He smashed his own face on the keyboard, logged off the machine, thanked me, and left the class. I knew this level of teaching wasn't for me. I don't know what he's been up to, but I can't imagine a coworker responding to bugs like that. I had a religion teacher in high school named Mr. Nguyen, who was working on becoming a Jesuit priest and was a really cool guy. There was a kid in my class who was an annoying smartass, but Mr. Nguyen was always really patient with him, until one day he pushed him too far. I forgot exactly what the kid said, but it definitely crossed the line. Mr. Nguyen slammed his fists on his desk and shouted, "Why can't you ever shut the duck up?" He then picked up his stapler and chucked it at the kid, missing his head by a few inches and leaving a huge dent in the wall, and then stormed out into the hallway. There was another religion teacher down the hall who heard the commotion and talked to Mr. Nguyen in the hall for a while to calm him down. He didn't give up on teaching, but it was a pretty extreme duck this moment I witnessed. 2 weeks into my first year teaching 9th grade math, I had a girl attack another girl for no reason in my class. She was grabbing onto her hair really tightly and I was trying to break it up. Another student tried to help me out and somehow the instigating student managed to punch him in the face and give him a bloody nose while still holding onto the other student's hair. Now what makes this story relevant is I literally said the words "duck this" while trying to break up the fight. Not loud, not to a student, but just like "duck this, I'm not gonna let this happen in my class right now." Well, the instigating student decided to tell the principal that I was cursing at her, despite the other students in the class supporting me and the fact that this student had a history of violence. I got a letter in my permanent file saying I had used inappropriate language towards a student. Duck that. Teaching taught me a lot, but I couldn't do it for more than a couple years. Really respect those that make it their career. When the prestigious high school I was working at focused on sports more than academics. On top of that, it turned out that the principal overrode teachers' marks if they tried giving students a failing grade. Duck that. Told this story 100 times already, but it was the time I was breaking up a fight between a 12-year-old boy and girl, and the boy turned around and punched me in the nuts as hard as he could. The school administrators did nothing. His mom was in the room with him. She did nothing. The general feeling was, this kid's mom pays tuition. Deal with it. I dealt with it by leaving the school, opening my own private school, and taking half the students with me. When the principal told me one of my students' mother was getting her secondary education certification so she could move up to teach HS math, where her son was, so they wouldn't be renewing my contract to teach the following year, but they were in need of a network administrator for the school district, and they were willing to pay me a teacher's $25,000 salary to do it, and I would be answering to each building principal, like a janitor, not to the superintendent, like a district level admin. Was substituting at a low-income middle school for the day, about 40 students per class. Just had a simple worksheet for them to work on every hour rotation. Spent the day breaking up fist fights, chairs or desks being thrown across the room, students having screaming matches, students climbing and dancing on desks, students just leaving class during the chaos. I had 6 students turn in the completed worksheet for an entire day of class rotations. I realized I was no longer a teacher but a prison guard with less benefits and no way to defend myself. I guarantee 80% of these kids will end up dead or in prison before the age of 25. Never again. I was teaching middle school English while overseas in Europe when 2 students, a boy and a girl, began viciously fighting after the boy made comments about the girl's mother. For most people, this would be easy to break up, but as a 5 feet 5 inches manlet, both the 13-year-old kids had several inches and pounds on me. When I positioned myself in between them, they took a break from fighting each other to work as a team to push me over a desk. They then promptly resumed punching each other's lights out. I quit that week. Edit, in case anyone is interested. The fight ended abruptly when the girl gave the boy a nosebleed and he finally let go of her ponytail. I have to. Early in my career, I had students who were plagiarizing lab reports. I turned them in, mostly because I felt I had to. The school made a huge ducking deal about cheating and had an academic honesty pledge statement students wrote on every test. One set of parents screamed at me over the phone. Next thing I know, I had a meeting with the vice principal who said they didn't want the cheating to interfere with the students' future and he ripped up all the plagiarism reports I wrote that year. My second time saying duck this was based on the cumulative effects of being unsupported by the school. They changed which courses I was teaching and the grade level. We had a construction project going on so there was constant noise, including beeping and drilling. Even when they promised it wouldn't be during the school day, that was a lie. Stupid school-wide initiatives, or pointless meetings, incompetent high-ups. It's the adults in the system that make it hard to be a teacher. The kids are generally not the problem. Mother and father were teachers. For mother, when a parent, dad, tried to punch her in the face because his son had to repeat the year, the kid was a disaster and put 0 effort in class. Later, someone scratched her car, put stickers on it and wrote slurs with liquid paper on the windows. She asked for anticipated retirement after this. For father, a male teacher, co-worker told him they should fix their problems with punches outside. Father is no small, so he stood above him and told him okay, let's go. The other suddenly did not want to keep going. In the same day, a mother came because his son was not doing as good as she considered fair, and tried to seduce him, for both, not as teacher, but in a particular school, when a male co-worker told father they should have a private party, and if you behave, mother's name, dear, we will invite you. Father told him this was out of place and began to look for other schools to teach. For both, too much work, stress and problems, too little pay and benefits. To the point they had to wait half an hour to talk when they came back home before interacting with anyone. Here's another for ex-teachers. Why do you gravitate towards working in liquor stores after? Real question. 3 past teachers of mine work in liquor stores now. When admin wouldn't let me take more than 4 days off after a close friend died unexpectedly. "You're letting the kids down" is a phrase I heard over and over again as I tried to reason with them. Edit. Your responses have been overwhelmingly kind, and I appreciate every single one of them. Thank you so much. I caught a kid selling drugs in the hallway and turned him in. He threatened to kill me with an ice pick. He was super unstable and volatile, and had a criminal record, so I didn't doubt that he might try it. The principal refused to remove him from my class because he has the right to have an education. My other students took it upon themselves to escort me through the school in between classes and walk me to my car after school in a big huddle so Ice Pick Boy couldn't get to me. Duck that. Edit. Lots of people have asked why I didn't contact the police. I actually did. We had PD stationed in the school, but nothing happened because the kid's mom was a cop and she pulled strings to have the whole thing quashed. I didn't file a union grievance because it was almost the end of the school year. That it takes time. And I decided to quit and move far away instead. Also, to everyone telling me I shouldn't have ratted on the kid and snitches get stitches. I get it. You're edgy. But it was literally my job to help these kids become functioning adults. And selling drugs in front of your teacher is definitely an indication that you're heading down the wrong path. I actually could have lost my job if I didn't report him. No regrets. Caught a student cheating. But stupid cheating. Cheated off of someone else with the wrong answers and the same wrong spelling. When I spoke to him regarding taking a new test, generous on my part considering it should have been a 0 per school policy, he refused and said I would be hearing from his parents. Capital I, of course. Did hear from them via my principal within an hour. Gotta love kids and their phones readily available. Fast forward to a meeting with the student, parents, and principal. I had his test and the one from which he cheated. Upon showing this to the parents, I fully expected them to understand and hold their son accountable. Nope. Instead, the parents demanded an apology from me for branding their son a cheater, which would negatively impact him for the rest of his life. And also, it's the least I could do since they were paying my salary. When I said I would not apologize for catching their son cheating, the father then said I was lucky I was a woman because otherwise he would punch me in the face. Nice. So, yeah, good times. Glad I got my master's degree for that. Edit. Holy moly. Came back on just to lurk like I normally do. And I didn't expect this. Okay. So, admin ended the meeting at that moment. Shouldn't have gotten that far. I think. Can't remember, this was over 10 years ago now. The student was taken out of my class. Everyone wins on new admin these days. Super supportive of everyone. Holds teachers, parents, students, custodians, cafeteria workers and everyone in between responsible. Parents still get a little crazy, but as a staff, we feel very much supported. Also, for the record, I do love my job. Comes with its insane stories like they all do, right? A student had a mental breakdown in the library, smashed a wooden chair, and gouged a pencil in his arm while screaming that he wanted us all to go away. And I got reamed out for not calling campus security before I called 911. Edit. I want to thank you for the gold and to thank everyone for their kind words. There are so many good points about why on-site security should be called. Honestly, everyone should check with their institution and find out the protocols. But let your ethical and moral code guide you too. Please skip this paragraph if you have issues with violent events. Frankly, I am glad I called 911 first, or this story would have a really bad ending. When the student gouged his arm, he must have hit something and blood started pulsing out of his arm. He inflated, I don't know how else to explain it, turned purple, and screamed even louder. He took a step toward a student, looked at his arm again, fainted, smashed his face into a table corner, and started convulsing. 911 dispatcher talked us through what we needed to do until the EMTs got there. The student survived. No one else was physically hurt. He sent a thank you card after he got out of the treatment program. On calling security first, I was never informed of that policy. None of the other staff faculty who were trying to get the other students out or hidden in a staff room knew about the policy either. Others called 911 also. The person who screamed at me for not following the chain of command was the person who was supposed to train all faculty and staff in the policy. They did not do that. The school did have a history of not reporting vandalism, car break-ins, and thefts to local law enforcement. I don't think that came into play with this event. Thank you all again for your kindness. I still second guess myself about the events, but sometimes you can only do the best with what is in front of you. Full stop.